sunset. And suddenly, everything you thought you knew flips upside down. What went down that night? Stick around. You won't believe where this wild ride takes us. Hey guys, don't forget to smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit subscribe to keep up with our latest stories. Alright, let's dive in. I never thought one random night could flip my whole world upside down. My job, my decisions, and especially the guy I'd been working with for over a decade. But life has a way of hitting you with surprises when you're just chilling, like a killer beat dropping out of nowhere, each note shaking you to your core. It all kicked off on a totally normal evening. The company's big annual gala had just wrapped up, and the city lights were popping off, sparkling through the huge glass windows of this swanky rooftop spot. My ears were still buzzing with the laughter of my coworkers as I slipped outside, sucking in that crisp night air, finally free from the chaos. My sneakers, yeah, I ditched the heels hours ago, felt like a sweet relief after standing around fake smiling all night. Heading out already. I spun around, and there he was, John Smith, my boss for the last 12 years. Picture this, salt and pepper hair slicked back, rocking a sharp navy blazer with a popped collar, always carrying himself like he owned the room. Because, well, he kinda did. At 58, he was still the coolest, most in-control dude I knew, sipping his coffee on the go like it was his lifeline. But that night, something in his vibe was off. Just a little softer, you know. Just grabbing some air, I said, flashing a quick grin. Man, that was some party, huh? He stepped up next to me, hands shoved in his pockets, the streetlights casting this warm glow on his face, dialing down his usual boss mode energy. It was wild, but real talk. These things aren't my jam, I admitted, chuckling. He smirked. Funny, I throw them every year. That's just business, right? I teased. He tilted his head my way. You, though, looked like you were actually having fun. I shrugged. Guess I've learned to fake it till I make it. He let out this low, easy laugh, and for a sec, we just stood there, vibing in the quiet. The city was alive around us, cars honking, lights flashing, but it felt like we were in our own little bubble, away from the office grind. Then, out of nowhere, he dropped it. I'm not ready to bounce home yet. Want to grab a drink? I froze. Sure, we'd chat outside work, late night calls, strategy sessions that dragged on. But this hit different. There was this edge in his voice, something that made my heart do a little double tap. Yeah, sure, I said, playing it cool. Why not? We strolled down the street, leaving the flashy downtown towers behind for a quieter vibe. He led me to this cozy little lounge, dim lights, soft jazz humming through the air, the kind of spot that feels like it's stuck in a chill time warp. We slid into a corner booth, and he tugged at his tie. Dude, I'd never seen him loosen up like that. He looked at me, really looked at me, like he was seeing me for the first time. You've been with the company forever, he said, swirling his whiskey in the glass, the amber catching the light. 12 years, right? I nodded. Yup. Ever wonder what life would have been like if you'd gone a different way? His question threw me off. You asking if I've got regrets? Nah, not that, he said, shaking his head. Just curious. What about the paths you didn't take? I let out a slow breath, staring at the flickering candle on the table. I think we all wonder sometimes, but I'm big on believing every choice, every twist, lands us right where we're supposed to be. He smiled, a real one, not the polished boss smile. That's a dope way to see it. And then we talked, like really talked, not about work, not about deadlines or sales numbers, but about life. He spilled about his early days, the grind of building the company, the stuff he gave up to make it happen. I opened up too, about the dreams I used to chase, the moments that made me who I am. Time just melted away. One drink turned into two, then three, and somewhere in the mix of laughs and old stories, the vibe shifted. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing the back of my hand, slow, like he wasn't sure. I didn't pull back. The air got thick, like we were holding our breath, waiting for something to happen. Then, real quiet, he said, "I never told you this, but I've always looked up to you. Not just your work. You've got this energy, this way of keeping everything steady when the world's going nuts." My pulse kicked up a notch. Compliments. Sure, I'd heard 'em, but this wasn't some surface-level hype. This was raw, real. "You've always been my rock," he went on, his voice low. And maybe it took me too damn long to see how much that matters. I swallowed hard, my brain scrambling for words. This wasn't just my boss anymore. This was John, a guy I'd respected forever, whose opinion hit me harder than I'd ever let on. And sitting there, with the jazz humming and the candlelight flickering, I realized this night was about to change everything. In that cozy, dimly lit lounge, with the jazz humming low, I wasn't stressing about work or keeping it professional. Nah, all I could think about was how John Smith, my boss for 12 years, looked at me. Like, really looked at me. His hazel eyes cutting through the shadows, seeing me in a way that hit different. Like I wasn't just his go-to employee anymore, but someone he'd finally let himself notice. I should probably head home, I mumbled, sipping my iced tea, but my voice, zero conviction. He watched me for a beat, then nodded. "Let me walk you." The streets were chill now, the city winding down to a late-night hum. We stopped at my building's entrance, the neon sign buzzing faintly overhead. "Thanks for tonight," he said, hands shoved in his navy blazer pockets. "For listening." I grinned. "Right back at you, John." A beat passed, awkward, electric. Then, before I could overthink it, I leaned in. Just a little. Enough to feel the world shrink down to us, the streetlights blurring out everything else. But then I pulled back, my breath shaky. "Good night, John," I whispered, ducking inside before I could totally lose my cool. The door clicked shut, and I leaned against it, heart hammering. Something had shifted, big time, and I knew this was just the start. Next morning, I was up way too early, my brain still spinning from last night. The way John's hand brushed mine, that quiet spark in his voice, it wouldn't quit replaying. For years, he'd just been the boss. Sharp blazer, coffee in hand, all authority and respect. Now, he was John, the dude who'd dropped his guard, who'd looked at me like I was more than a name on a payroll. I shook it off, pouring my coffee into a chipped mug, the steam curling up in the morning light. "This is nuts," I muttered. Nothing happened. Nothing could happen. But when I rolled into the office, the air felt charged, like static before a storm. Through the glass of his office, I caught him on a call. Same slick hair, same vibe, but then his eyes flicked up, locked on mine. A quick pause, then this tiny smile, just for me. My stomach flipped like I'd missed a step. The day dragged on. Meetings, emails, the usual grind. But my head was elsewhere. John was all over the place too, popping by my desk more than he ever did, holding my gaze a second too long. By late afternoon, I was antsy, itching for a break. I hit the office terrace, the crisp fall air hitting my face as the city buzzed below, horns blaring, leaves swirling in the wind. I was so lost in my head, I didn't hear the door creak open. "You dodging me, Emily?" John's voice was smooth, but there was a little bite to it. I turned, forcing a laugh. Dodging you. That's a stretch, dude. He stepped closer, hands in his pockets, that unreadable look on his face, the one I couldn't crack. Is it, though? I sighed, rubbing my forehead. John, last night was different. I know, he finished, his tone steady, eyes locked on mine. I glanced up at him. This guy I'd worked with forever, rocking his backward baseball cap like it was no big deal. But right then, he felt new. Or maybe I was finally seeing the real him. We can't go there, I said, quiet but firm, even if it sounded weak to my own ears. He studied me, then let out a slow breath. I get it. You're thinking this is risky, that it shakes things up. It does shake things up, I shot back. John, you're my boss. There's rules, expectations. I don't give a damn about rules, he cut in, voice low but solid. I blinked. This wasn't the cool-headed John I knew, the guy who built an empire sip by sip. This was someone else, someone who wasn't plotting business moves, but was zeroed in on me. You're making this too complicated, he said, softer now. Last night, we weren't boss and worker. We were just two people, and I'm pretty sure we both felt something. My throat tightened. He wasn't wrong, and that scared me. Doesn't mean it's cool to act on it, I managed. He tilted his head, eyes searching mine. But you're not saying you didn't feel it too, are you? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The truth hung there, heavy and loud, no dodging it. I had felt something I hadn't let myself feel in forever. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Tell me I'm off base, Emily. Tell me, and I'll let it go. We'll pretend last night never happened. I wanted to say it. I wanted to shut it down, rewind everything to normal. But my lips wouldn't move, because deep down, I wasn't sure I wanted to let it go. The air on that terrace was buzzing, like some invisible spark was tugging us closer. My breath caught as John Smith reached out, his fingertips just grazing my wrist, soft, like he was asking, not pushing. My heart kicked into overdrive, that tiny touch lighting me up from head to toe. For years, I'd stuck to the script. Work hard, keep it predictable, stay in my lane. But right then, with John staring at me like I was some wild, unexpected surprise, those walls I'd built started to crack. He was waiting, eyes locked on mine, checking if I was in this as deep as he was. And you know what? I was. I let out a shaky breath. John, I've got no clue where this is going. He flashed a small grin, his backward cap casting a shadow in the dim light. Me neither, Emily. But that doesn't mean we gotta bail on it. A chilly breeze swept through, and I shivered, hugging my arms. John caught it right away, shrugging off his navy blazer and draping it over my shoulders. The faint whiff of his cologne, something spicy and warm, hit me, wrapping me up like a hug. Come on, he said, nodding toward the office door. Let's bounce. I hesitated, glancing back through the glass. Inside, the office was still alive, phones buzzing, people shuffling papers, the usual end-of-day grind. You mean right now? Why not? His voice was chill, but there was this quiet fire underneath, like he wasn't messing around. If I went back in, I knew the drill. Grab my stuff, head home, heat up some leftovers, and sit there pretending nothing had shifted. But it had. And for once, I wasn't about to let a moment slip through my fingers. All right, I said, my voice steady despite the butterflies. Let's roll. We ended up at this low-key restaurant a few blocks away, soft lights flickering, waiters whispering, the kind of spot that feels like a secret. John ordered a bottle of red, and as that first sip warmed me up, I felt my shoulders drop. So, I said, setting my glass down on the scratched wooden his wine, the deep red catching the glow of the candle between us. That unreadable boss vibe was still there, but tonight, there was something else, something real. Honestly, Emily, I just wanted to chill somewhere with you where we don't have to fake it. I swallowed hard. Fake it. He met my eyes, dead on. Like last night didn't mean a damn thing. Those words hit like a brick, heavy and impossible to dodge. I opened my mouth, fishing for something smart to say, but for once, I didn't want to overthink it. It did, I admitted, letting it hang there. A flash crossed his face, relief maybe, or something bigger. After that, we talked for hours. Not about work, not about the daily grind, but about us. I spilled stuff I hadn't said out loud in forever. How I'd put my job first for so long. How I'd convinced myself passion and connection were for other people, younger people with time to burn. John just listened, sipping his coffee like always, his eyes never leaving mine. When I finally ran out of steam, he reached over, his fingers brushing mine, simple, but so intentional it stole my breath. "You're not the only one who's felt that," he said, low and steady. And I believed him. By the time we left, the city had hushed down, the streets glowing with the soft amber vibe from the streetlights. The faint hum of cars filled the quiet as we walked, neither of us ready to call it a night. At a crosswalk, he stopped and turned to me. "I don't want to rush this," he said, his voice soft against the cool air. "But I'm not about to act like this doesn't matter." My heart was pounding. "John," he chuckled, shaking his head. "I know, it's a mess." I let out a breathy laugh. "That's putting it lightly." We stood there, the city pulsing around us, but it felt like we were the only two people on the planet. Then, without overanalyzing every move, I stepped closer. His breath hitched, his eyes searching mine, and I just went for it. The kiss was slow, careful, like we were testing the waters of a song we didn't know yet. His hand slid to my cheek, gentle but sure, and when we finally pulled back, the world felt a little less steady, but in the best way. John's forehead brushed mine, soft and warm, the city lights flickering in the distance. "This flips everything, doesn't it?" I whispered, my voice barely cutting through the night air. "It does," he murmured, his breath tickling my skin. "But maybe that's not the worst thing." I shut my eyes, soaking in the vibe. Maybe, just maybe, he was onto something. Next morning, I woke up a mess, excited, jittery, totally unsure. Last night stuck with me. The feel of John's lips, the heat of his hand, the way he looked at me like I was worth the wait. But as sunlight blasted through my blinds, reality crashed the party. I was still his employee. He was still the boss. We jumped a line. There was no unjumping. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, lighting up with a text. "John, morning, Emily. No regrets, right?" A grin tugged at my lips as I shot back. "Me? Nope. You." His reply pinged instantly. "John, not one. Can I see you later?" I froze. I wanted to, big time, but later felt like a question mark. Could we pull this off outside the office, beyond the clean-cut rules we'd lived by for years? I took a deep breath and typed, "Me. Yeah, but we gotta talk first." That evening, we met at this quiet park just outside town. No office noise, no nosy coworkers. John was already there, leaning against a weathered bench, hands stuffed in his blazer pockets, his backward cap tilted just right. He looked up as I rolled in, his face softening in a way I wasn't used to. "Hey," he said, sipping his coffee like always. "Hey," I echoed, plopping down next to him. For a sec, we just chilled, watching the sunset paint the trees gold, the air crisp with that fall bite. Then I broke the silence. "John, I need to know." What's next? He let out a slow breath, like he'd been bracing for it. I don't have it all figured out, he admitted, kicking at a stray leaf. But I know I don't want last night to be some fluke we brush off. I nodded, chewing my lip. Me neither. He turned to me, eyes steady. Then let's not box this in with rules or what people expect. Let's make it about us, whatever that turns out to be. I swallowed hard. And work. He chuckled, low and easy. I'm not gonna mess with your career, Emily. You've busted your butt for it. If we need to set some ground rules at the office, we'll hash it out. But I'm not letting logistics kill whatever this is. His words hit deep, loosening something tight in my chest. For way too long, I'd let the what-ifs hold me back. Told myself I was too old to feel this kind of spark. But here was John, standing right there with me, ready to roll the dice. I reached for his hand, my grip firm. Okay, I said, voice solid. Let's see where this ride takes us. The relief in his grin was electric, and when he pulled me in for a slow, lingering kiss under that fading golden light, it clicked. This wasn't just some random night that went off script. This was the start of something new, and I was all in. Hey guys, if you like this story, don't forget to smash that like button. It really helps me out. And yo, hit subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think.